A big portion of Yinlin's kit is focused around her forte, and the way we do that is by building up judgment points. You can hold up to 100 judgment points, and the way we get them is by casting your intro skill, using her basic attack, or her resonant skill. With her normal attack, Zap, String, Dance, you can either perform up to 4 basic attacks, you can use the heavy attack if the forte is not all the way up, and she also has a mid-air attack and a dodge counter. Now her resonant skill is pretty interesting because it has multiple uses. So when you use it the first time, that's considered Magnetic Roar, and you'll use Zap String, you'll deal electric damage, and it puts Yinlin in execution mode. In this mode, her basic attack and dodge counters will trigger 1 electromagnetic blast, and that can happen up to 4 times. This basically attacks all targets marked with the Forte Circuit Center's Mark, dealing electro damage. Now to apply Center's Mark, you either use your basic attack, your Resist Liberation, or your intro skill, and note it does go away when she's switched off on the field, so there is a specific damage rotation you want to do, which I'll talk about here in a bit. Now coming back to the Resonant skill, she has a second Resonant skill that follows up after Magnetic Roar called Lightning Execution. After doing all the attacks that I just mentioned, you're building up judgment points, and when it's full, you can actually cast your heavy attack, and that is replaced with Chameleon Cipher. Chains of Lightning come down, dealing electric damage, and when it hits a target with Center's Mark, it is replaced with Punishment Mark, lasting 18 seconds. Chameleon Cipher is considered heavy attack damage. Now that the targets are marked with Punishment Mark, when they take damage, Judgment Strike will fall, and that triggers the coordinated attacks between all of those targets affected by Punishment Mark, dealing electro damage. Now this can be triggered 1 time per second, whether it's with Yinlin or a different resonator. So if you use her outro skill and then bring in someone like Zhang Liao, for example, he can still trigger Judgment Strike even though Yinlin's not on the field. Again, only Center's Mark goes away. Punishment Mark stays on the target, so keep that in mind. And the Judgment Strike damage is considered Resonant skill damage. Her Resonance Liberation, Thundering Wrath, will call down some electro damage in a large range and is easily one of the better Resist Liberation animations in my opinion. Now that we've talked about how Yinlin's kit works, let's talk about your damage rotation. So after using your support character or another resonator, you want to use her intro skill, which is going to give 30 judgment points, and if you are using her as your main DPS, this is where you would use Tempest Memphis. After that, you want to use your Resonance Liberation to apply Center's Mark to as many targets as possible. Then you want to use her first Resonant skill, Magnetic Roar, to get her in execution mode and proc Electric Magnetic Blast from all the targets hit by Center's Mark. This will trigger her inherent skill, giving the 15% crit rate bump, and this is where you want to use her basic attack 1 through 4 to build up around 41 judgment points. After that, you want to follow up with the Resonant skill again, which is Lightning Execution, giving you 10 judgment points. At this point, you should have full judgment points on her forte to use the heavy attack, but if you are using her as a sub-DPS unit, make sure to use the Heron first and then use the heavy attack. Then after that, you're going to follow up with her outro skill, giving the electric and the Resist Liberation damage bump to the next resonator.